OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Carol Wagland. Got Shawn Green coming up here in a moment. Former Blue Jay, former Dodger. Get his take on a couple things here with the Jays, including George Springer moving off the leadoff spot, hitting fifth tonight. First time in a couple of years that's happened.
Yeah, since 2021 he hasn't led off.
Yeah, and he's struggling. Like, he's really struggling. And like we said last hour, it's not like they're moving him to seventh or eighth or even ninth in the order. You know, you're hitting fifth. You're expected to contribute. And I think that's a sign of the respect they have for Springer and the understanding they got to get him going.
It seems like a very John Schneider type move. Very
right.
Player friendly. We need to do something, George, but we're not going to make it too painful for you.
Yeah, you got to move. And Whit Merrifield hitting leadoff is justified. He's been outstanding for them. He's been really, really good. So Merrifield hitting leadoff tonight. Springer moves down to fifth in the order. And we have an answer on the return of Hyunjin Ryu. Tuesday night, the beginning of a six-man rotation.
An important one against Baltimore, too.
Yes.
Which is going to be interesting. And everyone questioning whether or not they were going to move someone to the pen to make room for him. Instead, they're going to roll with a six-man rotation for a while. Yeah,
and that'll be the first start post-trade deadline as well. So what's the mood like in the room if they don't?
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
They don't make reinforcements, or if they do add reinforcements. And then what are you thinking with Ryu coming back? First time we've seen him in a long time. And prior to the Tommy John, it's not like that was a guy you were dying to see on the mound anyway.
No, it was not good. Although no restrictions on him, according to our own Scott Mitchell, when he comes back on Tuesday. But so does that tell you that maybe they do plan to make a move to bring in another arm for the bullpen then at trade deadline because they're rolling with the six-man? Because you would have thought with the pen being as fatigued as they have lately that they would have looked to move one of those guys back maybe in a long relief role.
Something's going to have to give here. And you were saying this off the air that in order, like if you're going to put Ryu into the rotation, Ryu is not a bullpen guy.
No.
The way he throws, it's not really an option. But
Kikuchi doesn't deserve to be
because
back.
he's pitched well. He would be
the guy that you would normally, he's done that role before, but he hasn't earned it. And we were talking about it. Like the only guy who really, based on the statistics, deserves to be moved back would be Manoah, but that would be a confidence crusher, and you would take about 1 million steps back with him.
Yeah, and listen, they may not be far off that. Like he's starting tomorrow, and if it's ugly and he's got 2 or 3 more ugly starts, I don't know how long the leash is going to be. At some point, they're going to have to rectify that. But that's probably like a long relief type option.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're sending a starter into the bullpen, it's not ideal. It's a demotion. They're not happy with that. And, you know, in the playoffs, you see someone on short rest come out in a high leverage situation. Very rarely do you send a starter back and say, all right, you're coming out high leverage,
you see it sometimes. Didn't they do that with David Price when they made the playoffs?
Yeah.
Way back when.
But that's what I'm saying. In the playoffs,
when you're heading into the playoffs, you can convince the guy, go, this is for the betterment of the team.
Not for 50 games.
No.
Yeah. Like rarely do you see a scenario where it's like, sorry, man, you're getting squeezed. And the reason you're getting squeezed is because you're not pitching well. But we want you to come out of the bullpen, something that's completely foreign to you, and give us 3 big outs in a close game in the 8th. I don't see that happening.
No, but at least they have some options because we don't know how Ryu's going to look. We don't know how Manoah's going to do over the next few starts. We don't even know how Kevin Gausman's going to do tonight. His velocity's been down. He allowed 4 earned runs against Seattle. So there's a lot of question marks.
Absolutely.
Hope it all goes well.
Yes.
If it doesn't, they now have some options.
They do in terms of name value.
Yes.
You know, like this, I give Hyunjin Ryu a lot of credit. Like, this is a veteran guy. He's made a lot of money, and he's battled and worked hard, and he's back. Like, that's a cool story. And, like, when he signed, we didn't really get to see him because his first year was the COVID year, I believe, right? In 2020?
COVID just all...
I know, it all kind of mashes together, but that was the year where he was up for the Cy Young. I don't think we ever got to see him pitch in Toronto.
No. At least not well.
Yeah. So, you know, he'll be back on Tuesday night.
It almost puts Jay's brass in a bit of a tough spot, too, because we're 5 days out from trade deadline now. You'd really love to see a couple of these guys get a start before you make any huge decisions, but you don't have the time to do that.
Right. Well, and Ryu is starting after the deadline.
Yes,
like
exactly.
An hour after the deadline passes, there goes Ryu, and we'll see what...
And he just gets lit for 8 runs or something. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, man, I guess we should have gone after Stroman or something.
I think, exactly. I think that'll be... Like, if he struggles, it'll be an easier conversation with him.
Right.
He doesn't have a future here. He's 36. You battled back.
He's up after this year?
Yes,
Contract?
this is his fourth and final year of his contract. So I think at that point, if he struggles, there's probably an understanding, hey, thanks for battling, being a pro, but you're out. You're out of the rotation. But, yeah, Jays are in an interesting spot, and Shohei Ohtani and the Angels are in town tonight. Shohei left the game yesterday, the second part of a doubleheader in Detroit with cramps, but he's back tonight. He was cramping yesterday, but he's all good today, and he's back in the lineup. And to look ahead to the series, among many other things throughout baseball, here's former Blue Jay, former Dodger as well, joining us here on the Maple Twitter hotline. Back on OverDrive, here's Shawn Green. How you doing, Shawn?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing pretty well. We're talking about a couple of stories up here in Toronto. I want to ask you about the Springer story in particular. Like, George is, he's been hitting leadoff his whole career. He's made a career out of it. He's really struggling. They're moving him to the fifth spot in the lineup tonight. I don't know if you've been through a scenario like this before, but how difficult can that be for a veteran to stomach? You got to move. Like, we can't continue to hit you where you think you want to hit.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. When you're struggling, you kind of get to the point where you understand, hey, I'm not helping. It's a crucial spot, especially in the Jays lineup with all the good, the good core of a lineup that they have. So I think he understands that. What I hated is one year in LA, I was struggling, and the manager, Jim Tracy, wanted to kind of, let's hit you leadoff today. Let's hit you seventh today. Let's hit you second. And if you keep bouncing around, it just creates more of a story, it kind of exposes the fact that you're struggling even more, and it creates a bigger obstacle to overcome mentally. So I think as long as you put him in a spot and say, okay, let's just hit fifth for the next week or two and see if you can get better pitches or not be in the same types of situations, and maybe that changes things around a little bit. It changes your comfort level, and that works. But bouncing around every day, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's valid. And you would think it's a pretty delicate conversation, right? Like, Schneider, to your point, Springer's not stupid. George knows he's struggling right now. Like, he's really, really struggling post-trade deadline. But as long as you're honest with the guy, like you're pointing out, and I think Schneider, as a young manager, I'd be surprised if he wasn't. So would you expect it's just a matter of time then with a veteran like this, a track record like this, once he gets hot again, you'd probably see Springer back in the leadoff role in the next couple of weeks if it happens?
Yeah, I think that's what you hope for, is that you can move down there a little lower in the lineup, maybe have, you're still going to have key situations pop up, but you're not going to maybe get that extra at bat each day, that fifth at bat or whatever. And you kind of settle in and you figure something out. Just sometimes just any kind of change helps you. And it just sort of, it's kind of weird. It's almost like, any little jolt to the system could get something going, whether it's a swinging bunt for a hit or whatever. And this type of thing just kind of changes the routine a little bit, and it often helps. So once it helps, okay, hey, go back to say, hey, George, you ready to go back in your leadoff role? You feel comfortable, and that's kind of what usually is the best approach from a manager's perspective.
Shawn, we've been talking about the Jays this year. They've been playing well. I mean, they're 5.5 games back of the Orioles for the division lead, but it kind of feels like they're just not really clicking, or they haven't clicked fully yet so far this season over a longer stretch, but they might be on their way there, hopefully. In the AL East, though, such a difficult division. You look at the Orioles and the Rays have been performing so well. The Rays kind of tapered off a little bit after a hot start. It's so weird to see the Red Sox and the Yankees in the basement of the AL East. But looking ahead, where do you realistically kind of see the Jays finishing? Are they competing for a wild card, or do you see them as having a chance at the division?
Yeah, I mean, I think both, really. I mean, the Jays are the team I think that everyone's worried about in that division because people aren't stupid. They know, hey, this team is super talented, have high expectations coming into the season, had high expectations coming into the season, and they've actually been playing well. It's just been a crazy, unprecedented division this year. But you get Bichette and Vladdy, Springer, get some of these guys really hot at the same time, then all of a sudden, look out. And I think that's, if I'm on the Jays right now, I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at because you still have more than 2 months left of the season, and you're right in striking distance. I mean, 5.5 games is nothing for the division, especially as everyone kind of beats up on each other, everyone's pretty comparable. And it's not like they're playing in a division where the last place team is the Oakland A's or Kansas City or something like that, where, those 6 games that they're playing against someone that's a couple games ahead of you are like automatic wins for that team. So that's the thing, is everyone can beat everybody, and it's a matter of who gets the hottest, I think, over the next stretch.
With former Blue Jay Shawn Green. With that being said, Shawn, we got the trade deadline on Tuesday. It was just announced last hour. Hyunjin Ryu is going to return to the rotation up here. Jay's going to have a 6-man rotation starting Tuesday night. When you're a veteran on a good team, what's the conversation like with the GM if he's kicking around the clubhouse? At any point in your career, or did you know of any veterans that would be blunt with a GM saying, go get us somebody, or leave us alone, one way or the other? Or do those conversations just not really happen in the big leagues?
They didn't happen a ton when I was there. Actually, Gord Ash was pretty good about talking to guys and saying, hey, what do you think? If it's Carlos Delgado and myself, and he's looking at trading for a left-hand pitcher or something, they might say, hey, what do you guys think of, you guys face him a lot in key situations. What do you think of this guy? And I think if I was the GM, I would for sure do that. Like, I would ask my lefties, who's the toughest lefty of these 3 guys that are available? Who would you not want to face? And, other things can be more cut and dry. You see a certain position that, it's kind of the numbers of the numbers, but you definitely want to know, like, what's this guy's character like? Is he going to fit into this team well? So those types of questions, I think, can be pretty helpful and informative to, if you're debating between a couple guys.
We got the Angels in here this weekend. Everyone was I got tickets Sunday. I was really hoping Shohei was going to be pitching this series. He's not. He's going to be hitting still. Just a couple days ago, the Angels announced not only are they going to keep Ohtani, but they look like they're going for it as well. Do you think that this is a good decision in keeping Ohtani rather than looking for a trade partner for him?
I mean, usually when I hear a team say that, then the guy gets, I think, okay, he's on the trade block, and it's just sort of a ploy to a negotiation ploy. But it does seem they're adding. So, the Angels have been kind of just a strange team. They've had these megastar, like generational talent, and they're kind of stuck in this weird middle place. Like you kind of have to go one way or the other. You have to really spend around guys like Trout and Ohtani, or you have to move them and rebuild. So I think the worst thing they can do is kind of stand pat. If they're able to put in some, add some really good guys that could get them over the top and give them a good shot to win the World Series this year, which I don't know, it's kind of tough to do at the deadline, but maybe they can. Then it makes all the sense in the world to go for it when you have Ohtani with having the greatest year in the history of baseball. But if you're thinking about long-term health of the organization, then you kind of have to move it.
So we always talk about Ohtani on the show. Clearly, Annie's in town. We discussed a lot yesterday on the show what he did in Detroit through a complete game, one-hitter, shutout, and then hit 2 home runs in the afternoon. It's absurd. I mean, we're running out of ways to describe this guy, and yet we never played in the major leagues. As a guy who played and was a really good player, like, what is your viewing experience like, and how are you kind of approaching this unicorn that is Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate in that the team that's closest to where I live here in California is the Angels. So he's a huge deal here. But it's almost like he's underrated. Like what he's doing should be the talk of all sports. It's unprecedented. It's in a lot of ways it's even more amazing to me than what Bo Jackson was doing, because to be this dominant, I mean, it's pitching and hitting are two completely different skill sets, and just train. I think a lot of guys who could have been successful doing both, it just wasn't an option. Guys like Vladimir Guerrero Sr., who had a cannon, and I'm sure he could have. And maybe it's throw one inning, but to be able to come out and and be one of the top 5 starting pitchers in baseball and the best offensive player in baseball this year. I mean, it truly is amazing. And I think, like everyone, I'm curious to see where he ends up and what kind of contract he gets. Because if I was his agent, I would say, look, he should get more than what a top hitter and a top pitcher gets, because you're getting one player, you're getting both, and you're getting someone that you could market like no one else before in the game.
Okay, so you mentioned you live in LA. Be honest with me. Does anyone in LA even care about the Angels? Because it really feels like they don't.
Actually, yeah, it's just been a strange, because they had so much success in the early 2000s, and they won the World Series, and were always in the hunt. And then once Trout got there, they've had some good talent around them at times, but it's been more just a superstar show as opposed to having, the depth of a team that they've tried to, that they could have built around these guys. And I think for Angel fans, it's been really frustrating. I have a lot of friends who are big Angel fans, and, it's like, God, we just wasted all this time with Trout and now Ohtani, and it's kind of at the end of that line. And, I think most of them feel like they should trade him because, they don't want him to see him walk away and get nothing out of, the greatest player who's ever played.
Shawn, I want to get your take on something. I don't know if you got a chance to see the Cardinals-Cubs highlights last night. And Ian Happ, on his backswing at the plate, hit Wilson Contreras in the helmet. Contreras injured his scalp, got a laceration. Happ said sorry. They hugged at home plate. Obviously, there was zero intent there. But in the game of baseball, as there tends to be these unwritten rules, retribution was sought out, and Miles Michaelis plunked Ian Happ. First, he brushed him back, and then he plunked him on the tushy. And then the bullpen's cleared, and the bench is cleared, and all the things in baseball. Now, the umpires made the decision not to issue any warnings. At the time, they immediately ejected Michaelis, and the Cards were upset about it. Where do you stand on these unwritten rules? Because I'm getting really tired of this whole, there was no intent in trying to hurt Contreras by Happ. They said sorry at the plate. Happ checked in on him, made sure he was okay, and yet Michaelis still came and brushed him back and then hit him on the backside to send a message. Why do we keep doing this in baseball? I don't know where you land on this issue. I know a lot of kind of old school purists think this is how baseball is. Even the Cardinals announcers were very much like against the umpires for ejecting him so quickly. Where do you stand on all of this?
Yeah, I didn't see the highlights of that. I did not, but I think it just depends. If a ball gets away from a guy, then that's one thing. But if one thing as a hitter that used to, get me pretty upset, and I would tell pitchers on my team, is if a team's constantly missing inside, even if it's not intentional, but if they feel like they can take the liberties, it makes it harder for us to hit. So that's when some retaliation needs to be done. To say, hey, you guys can't just have that much leeway inside on all the hitters, not because they're worried about us getting hit as much as it's going to make us less effective, because now we have to maybe get off the plate a little bit or be more focused on that inside fastball, and then it opens up the rest of the plate, opens up the slower pitches and all that stuff. So I think it's partly that, and definitely often a big part of it is you hit me, we're going to hit you. So I think from that standpoint, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But baseball just seems to be getting a little more sensitive with all of it. Like 2 nights ago, Marcus Semien got driven in. I think it was an RBI double. I can't remember. He got driven in, and because he chose to do a little bunny hop onto home plate as he crossed, the other team took offense to it. And everyone came out and had feelings about it. And I understand what you're saying. When a message has to be sent because it's affecting your ability to hit the ball or your ability to see strikes, I get that. But when there was zero intent involved in something, or a guy, it didn't even look like he was trying to showboat or anything. He just happened to step both feet on home plate at the same time, and someone felt a certain way about it. It's like zero celebration is accepted anymore. I feel like it's just getting more sensitive. Can we not just let people have fun?
No, I understand the fun point. But I honestly, from where it was when I played, like, it was a whole different. I mean, there's way more celebration now that's acceptable than it was when I played. Like, Barry Bonds was kind of known as the guy that did the craziest stuff. He'd do like 360s down the first base line. And I feel like now he would be kind of tame after hitting a home run. And I don't know. I mean, I see both sides of it. For me, as kind of an old school guy, when I hit home runs, I tended to just run the bases and that was it. I didn't have a full. I did in LA start. It's a whole long story there, but I started giving my batting gloves away after home runs because one time I was on deck, my batting glove was torn early on in my tenure with the Dodgers, and Vin Scully said on air, like, hey, I wonder if he gives his batting gloves away after home runs because I hit the home run and gave it away because they were torn. So that became a ritual, but that was more of a fan connection type thing. In terms of all the the skips and hops and all that stuff, like I'm kind of old school with that and think it's a little ridiculous, but I see your point as well that this younger generation's a little flashier and the fans enjoy the antics.
Vin Scully calling home runs.
I mean, that's got to feel good when Vin has called a home run for you.
You got to be like, you must jump on YouTube every once in a while, don't you, Sean? You're like, I got to go hear him call that home run.
I mean, he was a great man. It was nice to grow up in Southern California and listen to him and then get a chance to hear him saying my name or calling different things. But yeah, it was pretty cool to have that connection with the batting glove situation because in LA, whatever Vin says is etched in stone. So when he goes, I think maybe he gets his batting gloves away after home runs. That's what I did. So
perfect.
It was kind of a fun thing, but I was fortunate to have a chance to play and have him, holler my name for 5 years.
Yeah, that would have been really, really cool. Well, we appreciate you finding time for us today, Sean. Enjoy the rest of the summer. We'll do it again down the road.
Sounds good. I look forward to watching the Jays down the stretch here.
Yep, it's going to be fun. There he is, Shawn Green, former Jay, former Dodger, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Old school guy, Shawn Green. Doesn't want them to just have fun.
Did you see the Marcus Semien little bunny hop on? That is the most understated thing to do at home plate.
Yeah, and Semien, by all accounts, a very subdued guy anyway.
He is not a showboating kind of guy.
But blowout interstate interdivision game. And I said yesterday, though, I find it quite rich that the Astros feel like they have the ethics to police the rest of the game.
Nothing.
They should never say anything. They should have to chew on every possible celebration, anything that comes at them for at least the next 20 years.
Yes.
Because of what they did. But, emotions run high. I don't want to see, I think there can be a balance. Like the one you mentioned, the Cubs Cardinals is obviously that was a total fluke play.
It could have been less intentional.
Yeah, it wasn't.
The fact that they hugged it out, he said sorry.
Yeah.
I understand
it's
what
a
Sean's
follow
saying.
through. It's not
sometimes when they're messing with the strike zone, you got to do something to kind of send the message. That I get. But that was completely falls under the unwritten stupid rules of baseball category that just needs to be eliminated.
That even those are arbitrary because I don't think that would apply to every pitcher or every team. Like that's another thing about the unwritten rules. Like you could have two different teams, two different players do the exact same thing tonight, and that pitcher won't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, again, I think because of history, Cardinals, Cubs,
sure.
All of a sudden, maybe we feel some sort of an obligation. I don't know. But I think Sean brings up a good point. Like, there's way more celebration and bat flipping and stuff today than there ever were, like back in the day. Like, there's some wild stuff going on in baseball.
100%. But that just points, it just highlights the little silly things that much more that need to be eliminated from the game. Like MLB is going to do so much better. The more celebration, like look how great WBC was and how much fans seemed to enjoy WBC. The ratings were great because these guys were having fun. They were pimping it out. They were enjoying the game. They were more invested in their teams and in what they were doing. If MLB can bottle that and put it on their field, I mean, I know they saw, it came out today, a 9% increase in attendance and whatnot. It's going better. Great. But if we can get these little things out, let them have fun. Let Marcus Semien put 2 feet on the plate.
Yeah, but if he put 2 feet on the plate, no one would have paid attention. Like, I doubt anyone in the park even noticed that he did it. But then you get craziness. Like, I think there's a balance there.
You think people like the crazy?
Oh,
They get them plunked and stuff? I just don't understand.
I don't need a guy to get plunked, but if you have animosity between teams, that is the best thing you can sell in pro sports.
Animosity is fantastic. But when the whole reason you're upset and I know we got to go, is because Wilson Contreras got hurt, then why does it stand to reason that you should come back and potentially risk injury on another player by intentionally throwing at him?
Because he's not on your team.
Oh.
And you don't care about how he's doing or if he survives that pitch. I mean, he threw it off his ass. It's not like
Hap knew it was coming. He turned all the way to receive the pitch.
Exactly.
Like, it's just.
And Hap, he started walking up the first baseline. It wasn't like he wasn't going on the IL because of that. But a little animosity, couple of fights, dugouts clearing every once in a while. I don't think that's a bad thing.
To be fair, I don't think the dugouts cleared in the Cubs-Cardinals. I think I'm meshing the two games together with
Texas,
the Rangers.
Houston, it definitely did.
That it meshed together.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah, either way, all of it wrong.
It's all good. Oh, see, I think there's got to be a balance, Kara. I think there's got to be a bit of a balance. Scott Mitchell from the park at around 6:05. Dear Hazy B at 6:30. We're bringing it back. Kara's going to help out with this as well. Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. TSN 1050 and up on TSN 4. All right, Scott Mitchell from the park. Jays Angels tonight. Scotty coming up in about a half an hour. About an hour from now. Dear Hazy B going into the weekend. We haven't done that in a while. Welcoming submissions online. A lot of people writing in. A lot of ridiculous stuff happening out there.
I'm excited for this.
Yes.
This is going to be a complete
this is your big
fire, and I am very ready for it.
It's your big moment. You've been asking for it, right?
Yeah.
You wanted to step in. I don't think you've been a fan of some of the advice I've been handing out.
I'm gonna steer people back in the right direction. Hopefully.
No, I don't think so. I don't see it happening. And listen, when you give advice, which there's a lot of people that want to ask you advice, I will counter. If I feel like you're leading them astray, then I'm going to have to put a stop to that.
Hey, that's fine.
And it's mandatory. All right, our next guest here has got an incredible life story. Think you could ever be a Green Beret in the U.S. Army?
I couldn't.
How long could you survive?
2% of what this next guest has done.
Yes. U.S. Army, Green Beret, then went to university, walked on the football team, then made it to the NFL.
Undrafted at 34 years old.
34 years old. Now he's a TV star, right?
He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Sure, why not?
Served in the Special Forces in Iraq.
Okay. Anything else? There's got to be probably more stuff.
Took acting classes, directed and starred in a movie.
There you go. And the show Survive the Raft is debuting on Discovery this weekend. Up here, here he is, making his debut on Overdrive, Nate Boyer. What have you not done, Nate? Anything else in your life we should know about?
Diapers.
Okay.
Never done diapers.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, was that diapers or divers?
Diapers.
Oh, okay. I've done those. They're not great.
Okay.
One day.
One of those days. Well, thank you for doing this.
No,
thank you for doing
plenty.
this.
There's definitely plenty. But no, I appreciate it, guys. That was quite an intro.
Yeah, no, listen, the story is incredible. I mean, well, why don't we take it from a chronological order, like being a Green Beret, serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, I believe, as well. I mean, like the U.S. Army and Green Beret, Kara and I, obviously, we don't have a clue what that would endure, but how difficult was that? And how quickly did you get into it and realize this is going to be a serious grind to get through this?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that so a lot of things in my life I've kind of done late. I've basically been a late bloomer. I'm actually sitting here with my mom right now. She's driving me to my brother's house, and I was 15 days late. So she had to hold me for an extra 15 days. And
wow.
Ever since then,
setting the tone early.
In the Army, where I had to be on time, I'm always a little late to the party. So. I didn't join the military till it was actually my 24th birthday. After my 24th birthday, when I went to basic training, so I had a little bit of different perspective and some life experience. Not all of it was productive life experience, but I kind of done some different things, and I just was I was really clear on what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in the Special Forces, and so I just kind of had that mindset of no matter what, I'm not going to quit. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I have what it takes, but I'm just going to keep going, as hard as I can and see where things shake out. And it ended up being most of the guys around me that made it, pretty much all of us, I guess. That was sort of the same mentality. It wasn't necessarily the most talented, guys or most athletic or toughest. It was just the ones that I guess maybe that does make you tough somewhat, but the ones that just wouldn't quit no matter what. And that kind of carried through into football and now into some other things. It's just that, I think understanding that you don't have to be the most talented or the smartest or the biggest. You just got to life's a war of attrition. You just got to hang in there, keep plugging away. If it's what you love, why do anything else?
When you transitioned from Army life into football, how much of kind of that seeking out that camaraderie and that structure that a team offers was part of that transition in going from Army life into maybe why you chose football?
Honestly, way you could ever imagine. I wasn't really thinking about, when I was coming out of the military and going into football, I wasn't really thinking about what it would be like to be a veteran and transition out of the camouflage and into, a new jersey with a new identity and team and as you said, the structure and the locker room purpose, all those things, camaraderie. I didn't think about any of that. I just knew I wanted to try and play football now, and this was like going to be my next goal and focus. And then when football ended, and all of a sudden I didn't have either of those things. I really didn't feel like I had that locker room anymore. The reason to get up and go, train at 6 a.m. because you're trying to be the most prepared for the battlefield or the ball field. That's when I kind of felt a little bit lost and just not quite sure how to translate that energy. And so my transition, into the next phase of life, I guess, I didn't really feel like I took much of one from the military to football, if that makes sense, because there is so many similarities. Of course, going to war and playing sports are not the same thing, but, that's why I'm fortunate enough to be a part of this organization called MVP, which stands for Emerging Vets and Players. And that's exactly what we do. We bring together vets and athletes and help them find that next purpose and mission so that they can continue to fuel the passion and the drive that we have and figure out what the next goal is and, kind of transfer all that energy. Because if we're not able to do that, it's really challenging for a lot of us when we've lived that high tempo, way of life for so many years.
We're chatting with Nate Boyer. So my understanding is when, again, you left the military, you went to school, you joined the football team, you had not played any organized football before, and yet you walk on, you make an impact, and you end up taking snaps in the NFL. Like, at what point did it become somewhat of a reality that maybe you could get to the NFL level?
I don't know I don't know how much of a reality it really felt like. It felt like a dream come true in a lot of ways, just to get the shot. I mean, I didn't last that long at that level, but initially it was like smaller goals. Initially, like coming out of the military, the goal was just make it on the team in college. I got into the University of Texas, and it was just go to tryouts, don't get cut. So then I'm on the team. And then after a year or so, and I'm not playing, and I know I wasn't going to play at safety, the position I was in, because I didn't have these sort of intangibles. There just wasn't anything I could do to kind of get to elevate above the scout team. And that was totally fine. So it's like, all right, what else can I do to find a way on the field? So I started long snapping, and that was sort of a niche for me. It was a thankless job, but something that I could really focus and train at and become pretty efficient at. And you didn't have to be the best athlete in the world. You just had to be very consistent. And so then that's what opened the door to the NFL because, I was 34 years old when I signed with the Seahawks. I was the oldest guy on the team as a rookie. And I wasn't very big, and I'm not that good at football generally. So, but because of long snapping, it got me that shot. And so when I got up there, I was so focused initially on just don't get cut today, until I got to that preseason game. I only got to play in one preseason game, but I'm so grateful that I got to, because once I was there in that moment, that's where I really kind of took a step back, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like, I'm warming up on the field before the game next to Peyton Manning, who was he was on the Broncos at the time. It was his final season. And just kind of looking around and taking it in, and I got to play the whole second half, and it was amazing. It's something I'll never forget. But I not until that day really did I sort of take that step back and appreciate it. And thank God I did, because I got cut 3 days later. So and I'm glad that I soaked that in.
So you only spent a short amount of time with Seattle in the NFL, but you were there at the same time as our good friend Luke Willson. Did you have any interactions with Luke Willson, and can you confirm that he is as nuts in the locker room as I've heard stories?
Luke is awesome. I love him. We're still good buddies. I haven't talked to him in a while. You remind me. I got to check on that guy. He's out. He's probably cycling somewhere.
He's just riding his bike. It's all he's doing.
Yeah, he is.
Exactly. No, Luke was awesome. He was the first guy that took me out to dinner. He took me out to sushi, and he was just very curious. He's a very curious dude. So he was asking me a lot of questions about my background and all that. But he's just, he's so laid back. He's very Canadian. It's a great way to describe him, I think. But no, he's awesome. And I was really glad to get to know him. And that's another guy that, he'll admit it. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the most talented, but he's just a hard worker, and he does all the little things right. And that's how you succeed in life, I think. Of course, it helps when you've got a little skill at whatever you're doing, or at least a great amount of passion and desire. But when you can just do those little things and focus on the details and make sure those things are right and just be a good teammate, generally people want to work with you. That's how Luke is. He's a man.
Yeah, he's a beauty. With Nate Boyer, the host of Survive the Raft, which debuts on Discovery this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So I've gotten the full breakdown of what this show is about.
I have so many questions.
Sounds incredibly intense, but you're the host of it, so give us the breakdown. What are people going to be seeing on Sunday night?
Wait, Nate, are you on the raft with these people?
Sometimes. I don't have to sleep on it with him. I don't have to live on it, thank God.
Okay.
And I will say, Luke probably would have crushed it. Luke would have been a perfect, maybe season 2. We'll have to get
there
Luke
you go.
There you go.
I have a funny feeling he would be game.
Yeah, he would be so game. No, it was awesome. So it's based on a social experiment from 50 years ago. In 1973, this anthropologist named Santiago Enoves put 10 people on a raft, and then himself as well. And they floated from the Canary Islands in Spain to Mexico. It was a 101-day voyage. And, these people were from all walks of life. They weren't sailors or anything like that. They had a little bit of knowledge of the water, but not much. And he just wanted to see if people from various backgrounds and, beliefs, politics, religion, race, you name it, they couldn't be more different. Can these people put all that stuff aside and work together to survive the trip, to survive the raft, essentially? And, of course, all kinds of craziness ensued, and there was a near mutiny because he kept prodding everybody and, trying to stir up some controversy. So I kind of play that role a little bit. I don't think I stir up too much. They stirred up plenty within themselves. But this group that we put together, we went down to Panama in the Pearl Islands, and we rebuilt to spec, like the original raft. And these people lived on it 24/7. And, once again, there were 9 Americans that we brought out there from every facet of America that you can imagine, with all kinds of different opinions about things. And boy, did they share them with each other throughout. But it was just, I don't know, it was the idea of doing this experiment again in the divisive times that we live. Because, back then, 50 years ago, this was coming out of the Vietnam War and Watergate and Roe v. Wade. And, now today, a lot of these same things are coming back up. And, it's hard often to see people have conversations that don't agree and end up working together. And it was just really, I learned a lot. I was really surprised to see, as you guys will see, I don't want to give away too much, but despite all the fighting that occurred and the various, the drama that will unfold, there's some really surprising moments of unity and people kind of putting aside their preconceived notions of one another and just letting themselves actually listen and learn from each other. And you're talking about people that literally would never have a conversation if they weren't forced to on that raft. So that was cool to see. And I think that's what sets the show apart and what was special about it to me and what really drew me to it. Because typically I'm not really a reality TV show guy. That's not what I traditionally watch, but this just was different. There's just so much authenticity to it. So I'm really excited for you guys to watch. I'm glad it's playing up there in Canada as well.
So it sounds really cool, Nate, but are there bathrooms on the raft?
There is one.
There's one
Not
bathroom.
multiple. One little toilet. Yep.
That's going to
And
cause
so,
a
and then
scene, man.
for food, do they have to like hunt their own fish and stuff? Like there's just, I'm trying to picture this in my head. It's just.
Yeah, they do, and it really gets interesting when there's people on the raft that aren't too keen on eating meat. So things get spicy.
Okay, we love it.
But yeah, I mean they have to. Yeah, they've got to get off the raft when they have that opportunity, and find food, and it's not easy.
So they do get off the raft at periods.
From time to time, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It depends
I have
on
a
where they
million more
drift.
questions.
Let's just put it that way.
All right, we'll leave it there. Okay, Sunday night,
They'll
9
all be
p.m.
answered every Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Every
sorry,
Sunday,
go for
9
it.
p.m. on Discovery. Survive the Raft. He is the host of that show. Again, his story is incredible. Nate Boyer, really great having you on, Nate. We appreciate you doing this. Good luck with the show, and hopefully we get a chance to do this again down the road.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll have to do a recap.
Yes.
As we're rolling.
You got it. Absolutely.
Anytime.
Thank you, Nate. There he is.
Thank
Nate
you.
Boyer. You got it. Survive the Raft. Discovery. 9
One
p.m.
bathroom.
Yeah, that's going to be a scene, and
Normally, you would have to make a pact that there's no number twos when there's only one bathroom. But when you're on that for that period of time,
it's going to be outrageous, the kind of activity that could happen on there. And I would guess you get a few days in, you're like, screw it, I don't care anymore. Like, this is what's happening. On top of that, you might want to get in there for peace and quiet. Like, if you can't escape on that raft and you can get into the washroom and close the door, that is a place you want to be.
I can't.
As crazy as that sounds.
But if they're getting to get off it at certain points, don't you make people hold it until they get off? Okay, there's a port coming up.
Possibly.
Hold
I don't
it.
know. I don't know how long, he said it's more like
I would
where
have
you're
rules
drifting.
on this raft.
See, that's why I think there'd be an issue, because
I would get voted up real early.
you'd have 9 different people with 9 different sets of rules. It kind of sounded as if he was suggesting there's like vegans
Yes.
on this
How
too.
can you do that?
Like, how could you possibly?
Are you eating parts of the raft
Yeah.
because there's nothing else to eat?
I know. Like, how stupid would that be?
I don't know.
You put yourself in a position like this and immediately start complaining.
This is like Survivor, but worse. And Survivor is already my nightmare. You couldn't pay me enough to go on Survivor.
Yeah. Yeah. Survivor's 38 days or something like that?
No thanks.
Yeah. This is 21 days, but it's not like, I'm sure the elements are crazy.
Yeah.
There's no, like, Survivor, you can escape. Survivor, you can be like, I don't like these people. I'm walking 20 minutes away on the other side of the island, and I'm just going to sit there for a bit.
You can go walk off into the jungle, have some privacy to do your business.
Here, you can't do that. Yeah, it's go time.
Man.
Go time. All right. Yeah, that Nate Boyer, man, he's got a wild background. Like, multiple tours of duty in Afghanistan, Iraq.
He strikes me as someone who can't sit still.
Yeah, and it's someone that's obviously very open about his story. Like, I don't know how much he would want to get into detail on what he went through during those wars, but, because I'm sure every veteran is different. Some would be very willing to speak. Others would be just like, I don't want to get into any, I want to forget if I can.
But clearly compelled to make a difference and to help people. Like reading about when he was younger, before he even joined the Green Beret, he sold everything he had and went to Darfur and helped out at refugee camps before he even made the decision to get into the army. Like, it's to have that, to be compelled to help other people that much. That's a special individual. Yep,
that's pretty cool. Nate Boyer, we appreciate it. All right, Scott Mitchell in about 15 minutes from the park. Jays Angels tonight. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Mail-in Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza. Weekends are better with fish bowls and frosty pints on the BP patio. Grab your sunscreen and let's have a weekend. See you on the BP patio. Bet you that BP patio down on Front Street is probably rocking right now. Yes.
Mike is on now.
You might want to get that thing on.
At least once a show. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I just did that.
You got to figure out.
We're like going into the last hour.
I know.
How does this happen?
Yeah, we're mailing it in. That's the point. Mail in the fact that you got to actually hit your mic.
You got to actually turn the mic on.
Yeah. You can't really mail in that part.
No.
Kind of a requisite that your microphone is actually working.
Goodness.
But, yeah. Shohei Ohtani in the lineup tonight. There you go.
That's good. Grappler's actually ditching us early. He's going to head down to the ballpark.
Yeah, the Grappler.
He'll catch the game.
He got some tickets, And I think he said I thought you were talking about the
You were talking about
earlier.
him?
When you were discussing
Our
that
bosses took the
someone
tickets
got
back.
tickets and then, a boss gave it to someone and then the boss basically said, I need those things back. I thought you were talking about the grappler. I didn't want to
That
bring it
would've
up
been
because
great.
I was like, that could be sensitive. I don't know who.
That could get messy where it's like, I think I'm going down to the game tonight, and meanwhile, the boss, who shall remain nameless, is all of a sudden going to be down there with what had become my tickets.
I guess you wouldn't know because you couldn't even get in.
You get to the gate, you go to scan. They're like, "I'm sorry, sir.
This was scanned an hour ago.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
These seats don't belong to you anymore."
That actually does complicate things though. Like if you're transferring tickets via like an app or
Yeah.
something, how do you how would you I guess you can go back and forth. I don't know. It can get a little bit confusing.
It is. I miss the old school like ticket stuff.
Yeah.
I used to
Gotta have the
collect
stub.
those. Collecting a paper printout isn't the same anymore.
No, it's not. It's not. I actually went through my Apple Wallet recently and deleted some stuff. Like I had like old Disney stuff from years ago, and I'm like, what do I need this for? But anyway, it's not going backwards.
No, it's
The
not.
ticket stub is not going to return.
Those QR codes, they don't look the same in the nice shadow box on the wall.
No,
You know?
it's not going to happen. All right, final hour coming up. Scott Mitchell, Dear Hazy B still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.